Welcome to the MLB After Hours Podcast number 2. I am your host, Connor, a Cubs fan, and today we have 4 other guests. Tony, an Astros fan, Benny, a Mets fan, Hero, a Cardinals fan, and Karganic, a Mariners fan. So last week, we kind of recapped the start of the season for every team and went division by division and then team by team and talked about the outlook for everyone. Today, I'm going to do a little bit differently and just kind of touch on some topics from the week. And the first thing I want to talk about is the Fernando Tatis incident on Monday. The Padres were up 7 in the late innings, and it was 3-0 on Fernando Tatis. And he swung and he hit a grand slam. And there was kind of some backlash for that because it is supposedly an unwritten rule that you don't swing 3-0 with that big of a lead. So I want to ask each of you your opinions on that. And first, I'm going to go to Hero because I know he has some strong opinions on this. Hero, what do you think?
I think that regardless of the score, swinging 3-0 should be guaranteed, especially for a star hitter. It doesn't matter like the situation, if the bases are loaded or not. And I think the unwritten rules in general are just dumb and they're slowing down the progress of just baseball in general.
Right? Benny, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, this was certainly the baseball news story of the week, and in some ways, it was a little embarrassing, right? Your friends who are less into baseball than you, or more football guys or something, might say, "Why exactly are they mad about this?" And it's almost embarrassing to have to explain it to them that you come up with these unwritten rules. I think there's a few different moving parts, and one is that Tatis apparently had the sign to take the pitch, which is like, hey, what your manager says goes, or really in any sport, what your coach says is what you do. Now, whether you missed that or what, I mean, ultimately, right, the pitcher hasn't shown you that he has the control to throw a strike. So, on one hand, yeah, it's logical to wait and see if he's going to do that. But ultimately, the backlash against Tatis was just really poor optics, and I felt Tingler looked kind of silly because he was also like piling on, and it was almost like all of these baseball old timers were piling on Tatis, whereas younger fans and really fans of all ages were saying, "This is ridiculous. You're blaming him for this." So I don't know. I guess running up the score is kind of a uniquely sensitive topic, but when you think when you're a professional, you accept that it happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kurganic, what do you think?
Well, the thing is, if his coach did say to take the pitch, then you take the pitch, but it really depends on, like, the scenario in the game. You're up 7, you don't really need to swing at the pitch. In my opinion, I would have played a little bit more conservative in that scenario, but at the same time, when you have an opportunity to hit a grand slam, it's not like you're just not going to take it, because if think about it from a different perspective, if he does not take that pitch, I mean, if he does take that pitch, and then, and like, it was a pretty free pitch, like, you kind of have to swing at that pitch. So the thing is, if you're there and you don't take it, then people might come at you for, like, mercying the other team. So I feel as if it's a lose-lose situation. He wasn't going to come out of this winning because of the pitch that was thrown and the scenario that was in.
Yep, that's a good point. Tony, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, so basically what I think about it is I mean, I get that they were already up by 7 runs and all of that. But the thing is, these are professional hitters. They're paid millions of dollars to hit. And why would they give away free strike when it's a hittable pitch, and this can be the only hittable pitch they'll see all at bat. I do get that. I do get that. I do get why the Rangers are upset, but it's kind of like just you kind of probably should do like a better job pitching to them instead of just giving a pitch a hit and then just because your feelings are hurt, just try to talk crap about him, which just led to more grand slams afterwards. But my only thing is, these are professional hitters. They get paid tens of millions of dollars to hit. So why they should take a free pitch?
Yep, I agree with what you said, and I kind of want to segue uh, into the Padres after this because they haven't lost a game since our last podcast. They swept the Rangers, and then they just swept your Astros, Tony. So I'm gonna ask you, what I'm assuming you watched the series. What do you think about this Padres team? Do you think they'll make the playoffs? Do you think they got a chance to make a run?
This Padres team is legit. Fernando Tatis is an easily an MVP caliber player. Jake Cronenworth, easily rookie of the year candidate. And they're pitching and what? And their starting pitcher their pitcher Zach Davies, who started Saturday, dominated the Astros. The Astros barely had anything barely going. Davies basically shut down the Astros. And then just today, you had Zach Greinke pitching, and he is one of the best pitchers in LB right now. And the Padres scored 3 runs against him. And I think that this Padres team, if they can get some bullpen help or some pitching help in general, they'll be legit.
Yeah, I think they looked pretty good. And I think the offense has been a problem for them in the past, but this year it looks really good.
I mean,
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, all those grand slams that they hit. I do think they'll probably make the playoffs this year, especially considering there's only 5 teams in the NL right now that are over 500. Which brings me to my next question. Hero, I'll ask you. Uh, Looking at the NL, 8 teams have to make the playoffs, but really there's only maybe 4 or 5 that will. So, who do you think will be the wild card teams out of the NL? Choosing from maybe the Reds, Brewers, Mets, maybe even the Giants. What do you think?
Um, so for the National League, I believe the wild card team specifically, I think um, the Mets they're gonna get hot at some point. They have a good team. They might sneak in maybe as a second wild card spot. And the Reds, a lot of people had them like winning the division. I don't see it happening this year, but I think their team is good enough for a wild card spot. So uh, a Mets and Reds wild card is likely, in my opinion. I think the Rockies, they've been cold lately, but if they can catch more of those hot streaks that they had to start the season, they could definitely also be in the wild card race. But other than that, I don't think it's that tight of a race right now.
Yeah. Benny, why don't you talk about the Mets? I know they had the weekend off because of the COVID cases, but they've been they've been kind of hot and cold this year, but their offense has been one of the best in the league. What do you think about their chances for the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's getting to a point that it's a little scary, right? I think a lot of Mets fans, the first 10 games, they were real cold. They lost 3 or 4 to the Braves, and people were counting them out. People were saying, "I'm done watching baseball." In New York, the NL fans, that is. And the next 10 games, the pitching really got it together. There was a point where Edwin Diaz had like 6 straight good-looking outings. They played 26 games now, so the more recent 6 seems to be more of a balancing, a regressing to the mean. I think they probably are at this point, assuming Jeff McNeil does not miss like the rest of the season or something. They do kind of look like a wild card team as they stand, right? When you compare their 12-14 to some of the other teams with a similar record, like the Giants don't look like a playoff team by any standard. So I think the Mets should be in the mix, and I think with the change in ownership that's most likely going to come in the off season, Brody's got to be looking to state his claim as to why he should keep his job. So I'm a little worried about what kind of trades he could be looking to make, because I suspect they're going to be looking for starting pitching. It's kind of an open question how they're going to manage, assuming they return to playing regularly soon. How you fill out that rotation now with Stroman having opted out. So they are going to need more sustainable starting pitching, and if it looks like they're 500 and anyone could be a buyer, the next 24 hours, right? Today's the 23rd, so the trade deadline is tomorrow.
No, trade deadline's a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. Okay, yeah. So I mean, anyone really could feel like we're out of it if they get swept in a series. So the trade deadline will certainly be interesting.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little now and talk about the AL, specifically the Central. The White Sox just had a pretty good week. They swept the Tigers, and then they took 2 out of 3 in the Crosstown Cup against the Cubs, and they're looking like they might be on a streak now that could take them at least to the playoffs and maybe even to winning the division. The Twins still heavily the favorite there, I think, and the Indians, if they can keep pitching the way they have, will most likely make the playoffs. But I wanted to ask you guys your thoughts on the Central, who will win the division, and if they can get 3 teams in the playoffs. Kurganik, what do you think?
I think that they will get 3 teams in the playoffs, and it's solely because the Indians are third right now, if I recall correctly, and
They're actually in second now.
they just passed the White Sox.
Yeah.
Okay, so the White Sox started off kind of rocky, but they started off hotter than normal, and they seem to keep it up. They're not like losing a lot of games. They're keeping a step, like they don't seem like they're ready to slow down. The problem with the AL Central is that they're playing playing a bunch of teams in the NL Central that basically, unless you're playing the Pirates, you're going to have to show up, and they don't have the easiest of schedules. Those 3 teams, they're all comparable to the other. I think the Twins are still a tier above, but they're all comparable to everyone else. So the only problem is, I feel like the rookie kind of beat themselves up and therefore not make it. I don't see how they get 3 teams in. I think they'll get, 4 teams in. I don't think they'll be able to actually get. I don't know if they'll even be able to get 3, but with this expanded playoffs, I think they have a higher odds of getting 3 than most other AL divisions. If you look at the AL West has the Astros, who are starting to heat up, and the A's, and then you have 3 teams who are really struggling. And in the AL East, you have 2 teams who have above 500 records, and then 2 teams with 500 records. So the AL Central is kind of just in a league of its own when it comes to divisions in the AL this year.
Tony, why don't you talk about the AL Central?
I think that it's pretty safe to state that there will be three teams in the that three teams from AL Central will make the playoffs. Just all three are way too good to miss out on an 8-team playoff. The only thing is who will win the Central, and I honestly think whoever wins the Central will get at least top two in the seeding because this year's seeding, well, we don't know if seeding is really poor or not due to what could happen due to if there's a bubble or not in the postseason. But um, but really, I think that in AL Central, it comes down to just experience, the where basically the Twins and the Indians, of course, have a lot of playoff experience. The Twins just got Nelson Cruz, who played in the just who played in World Series 9 years ago. And of course, the Indians they just been to a World Series 4 years ago, where the White Sox only have, I believe, I believe just one player make it to the postseason in general. But but the AL Central is definitely very fun to watch this year, especially with especially if them playing against other teams in AL Central. The AL Central is just promising talent coming through, and it's really nice to see it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that a few of the things you said are interesting. Pointing out the White Sox don't have much postseason experience. I mean, I know they have a few guys that have made the postseason.
Oh yeah, because there's only one player that made the World Series, I believe, and that was Dallas Keuchel.
Dallas Keuchel, yeah. They had Gio Gonzalez has some postseason
Oh
experience.
yeah, just
Yasmani
yeah.
Grandal and Edwin Encarnacion.
Oh yeah,
Um,
not gonna lie, I completely forgot that.
and I think Nomar Mazara might have some with the Rangers in 2016. I'm not sure about that though.
Yeah,
Anyway,
probably.
uh, I think you said something about whoever wins the Central will have one of the top two seeds. I think you said that, right?
Yes, I did.
I'm actually not so sure about that because I think first of all, I think the Athletics. I mean, they're doing really good. They're just winning games. So I think they'll probably have one of the top two, and I think the Yankees and Rays have a weaker division, not only with the AL East but also with the NL East to beat up on them. And the Twins, Indians, and White Sox, not only do they have to play the NL Central, they have to play each other. And the Twins have games left against the Indians and the White Sox, and the Indians have games left against the White Sox. So I think that'll create a little bit of regression for them as their record goes. But that'll be
Yeah,
interesting because the what might happen is you have the 3 and the 4 seed be from the AL Central, and
And
then
the 7th seed.
and the 7 seed, right? And one of the things I'm not so sure I like about the postseason format this year, not only do they just play 3 games in the first round, but correct me if I'm wrong, they don't reseed after that.
I don't
So
think
like
so.
what could end up happening? Like take the NL. The Dodgers could win in the first round, beat the 8 seed, and then play the winner of the 4 and 5, right? And then the 2 seed, like let's just say it's the Cubs, maybe they win, and then they end up playing the 6 seed, which could be like the Reds or something. So I kind of wish they would reseed just for the first round. But anyway, I think that's interesting. And the other thing is that okay, so let's just say that we can safely assume, even though we can't, so let's say we can safely assume that the Athletics, Astros, Twins, Indians, White Sox, Yankees, and Rays all make the playoffs. That leaves one more team. That means either the Orioles, Blue Jays, maybe Tigers, or Rangers. One of them has to get in the playoffs.
Or
So
even Mariners. I guess the
maybe the Mariners.
I I'm going
the
to say
Mariners are
why
11 and 19 now. I think they're out of it, but it is interesting. It's all unprecedented. How much right that they all are stuck playing each other. It's like crabs in a bucket. Like we said, as competitive as the AL Central is, they're going to pull each other down. So you may get some surprises coming out of a weaker division as to who comes in at a 34 in 28 or something like that.
The reason I don't think the Mariners will make the playoffs is because while it would be a great time for them to end the drought, they're in a development year. They're developing a lot of rookie talent, and I just don't think that they're like. I wouldn't say that they're not trying to make the playoffs, but that is not their main goal. Their main goal is to develop talent for next year. Because as the Mariners, we have a young team, and because the team is so young, they we have a ton of second-year players. Like White's starting to look up, and but we're finally seeing our talent actually show through. I just don't see how we're going to be able to continue this down the stretch. I know we swept the Rangers, but this is still a below 500 team that we've swept.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that the Rangers with that series against the Mariners took a pretty big blow because they were 500. They lost 8 in a row, so they were actually 10-9, and they were looking like they could make the playoffs. And now all of a sudden, they're almost out of it, which means who knows? They might be trading away some of their pitchers at the deadline. I want to talk about the Orioles and Blue Jays specifically though, because I think they're basically the two teams that are going to be fighting for that 8 spot. So I wanna hear from each of you whether you think the Orioles or Blue Jays will make the playoffs. Or you can say somebody else if you want. Hero, what do you think?
So I think the Orioles have a great hitting core. A lot of guys have stepped up. The Blue Jays have a lot of young hitters too, but I think I'm gonna give the advantage to the Orioles here. They've been very impressive. I think it's fair to say the Orioles have surprised some more people, and the Blue Jays have been more of a disappointing team. So I think the Orioles they seem like a more complete team, more consistent also, and it's surprising the Orioles might even be buyers at the upcoming deadline to try to make that playoff push. Um, the Blue Jays they definitely need some pitching help. I think Matt Shoemaker just went down, and their rotation is pretty much just Ryu and the young rookie Pearson. He's been struggling lately, so the Blue Jays. I don't see them getting that 8th spot. I think the Orioles. They've had some guys that are just going off right now. So
Tony, who do you think has the edge there?
I personally think that because the Blue Jays recently had a big blow to the lineup with Bo Bichette going down, and I think just because of that alone, I'm gonna give the advantage to the Orioles. Bichette was Bichette was definitely one of their best hitters this year, and he went down. Even though Randall Grichuk recently has stepped it up, Teoscar Hernandez is doing pretty good, but I honestly think that the Orioles just have the better team this year. But I can definitely see the if the Blue Jays have Bo Bichette, then they can definitely make a push. But not this year since he's down.
Okay, Benny, who do you got?
I think the Blue Jays for sure, and I like the Blue Jays, and I don't think I'm being overly optimistic or a homer here. Um, right, their offense is not going on all cylinders without Bo Bichette in there, but they had a really rough start. Right, no one envied having to be on the road as long as they did, and once they got to Buffalo to Salem Field, it was clearly a hitter's park. They were clearly enjoying it, even as rough as some of those Marlins games were to watch back and forth. If you were a fan of either of those teams, probably upset your stomach. I think the Blue Jays have kind of uh, found their stride. They were hitting real well. What are they? 4 in the last 10. The Orioles, right? They're just struggling against the Red Sox, who have like historically bad pitching this year. If you're not beating up on the bottom of the division, where are you making up those wins? So I don't know. I think the Orioles may be a 500 team in the end, and I think the Blue Jays may eke out a fight for the wild card.
Okay. Kurganic, what do you think?
I also think that the Blue Jays will end up taking the 8th spot, and it's because if you look at how the Blue Jays are starting to heat up, and the Orioles are, I think they've won 3 of their last 10 or something.
That's right.
And if you've won 3 of your last 10 in a 60-game season, that's not a good sign. You can't have a mid-season slump like that in this type of season. Like, it's the same thing with the Tigers. They're 2 of the last 10. They were doing well, and now they're slumping away. So, like, this is the reason I think the Blue Jays will take the 8th spot. It's because, one, they're starting to heat up while the Orioles are trending down, and 2, in the head-to-head matchup, the Orioles got swept. So if you look at the head-to-head and how they're playing right now, even with Bo Bichette out, I think that there's a good shot that the Orioles will not continue to impress as much, and they'll kind of fall back down to where they've been, not to where they were like last year, because last year they were just terrible, but like they'll kind of fall back down like closer to the Red Sox when the season ends.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you two on that. And my reason is that if you look at their offenses, they're both doing okay. But if you look at the Blue Jays, they kind of got an all around good offense. With the exception of maybe Danny Jansen, their whole lineup's hitting pretty well. Kevin Biggio, 924 OPS. Teoscar Hernandez, 932. And even guys like Lourdes Gurriel, who's down at 681. He's got 11 RBIs. But then if you go to the Orioles, I mean, it's really just Anthony Santander with a 10-12 OPS, 10 homers, 27 RBIs. He's basically carrying the team. And Pedro Severino's doing his job at catcher too. But other than that, it's really just some high averages from Anser Alberto and Renato Nunez, but not much production, especially from people like Andrew Velasquez, Ryu Ruiz. They're not getting production from the whole lineup. And the other thing is, I watched the second game of the Phillies Blue Jays doubleheader a few days ago, and the Phillies took a 7-0 lead in the first inning, and the Blue Jays ended up coming back to win 9-8. And when I watched that, I was just hooked on the Blue Jays. I was like, they proved to me that they had what it takes to at least to outplay the Orioles. And I think Kurganic brought up another good point that the Blue Jays swept the Orioles. So I would definitely give the edge to the Blue Jays. I don't think this year is the Orioles' year to make the playoffs, but maybe in the future with Adley Rutschman coming up soon, I'm assuming. I want to talk about the NL a little bit more now, and the NL Central. The Pirates swept the Brewers this weekend, and the Cardinals took 3 out of 4 against the Reds. We know that at least 2 teams got to make the playoffs from this division. The Cubs got a pretty big lead, and the Cardinals are looking good. Hero, why don't you talk about that Cardinals Red series and the Cardinals recovering from COVID, what you're seeing from them, and if they're going to be able to make the playoffs and make a run.
So for the Cardinals, I think if there are the two teams that are gonna make the playoffs, at least from the NL Central, it's gonna be the Cubs and the Cardinals. Um, when the Cardinals, before they had the 17 days off, they had lost 3 straight games, and but 2 of those losses were to the Twins, which is, in my opinion, the toughest team we're gonna play in the regular season. And then they came back. They took a series against the White Sox, and the series against the Reds has proven that the Cardinals, even after recovering from the outbreak, they're a pretty good team. They're playing better than I expected. Um, I think that series could have been a sweep, which is a big statement, in my opinion, for the division. And um, yeah, the Cardinals are are looking good. I think they have potential to catch the Cubs. They're only 3 games back right now. The Cubs just lost the series against the White Sox, which is a really hot team right now. So can't really put that on the Cubs. Um, yeah, I think it's the NL Central is one of the divisions that's gonna be fun to watch unfold how it all goes down. But right now, there's really looking like just 2 teams right now.
Yeah, I agree. Benny, what are your thoughts on the NL Central?
Yeah, I mean, no one really knew what it was going to be like for the Cardinals to come back. Would they be rusty, right? I mean, you look across the league, how many injuries there've been, and it's clearly kind of a conditioning issue. So for the Cardinals, that was a hurdle. I don't even know how long they were allowed to be working out in any capacity. And they've, you know, they're in mid-season form, you could say, with everyone else, and with all the double headers they've got coming up, I think it's interesting. Some people seem to think that it's a gauntlet for the bullpen. However, if you can get innings out of your starters, if you can get them going, you know, 5 innings isn't long. Although no one seems to want to really push starters either with the conditioning issues. But if you can consistently get them going and you can save the bullpen, you may be in a better position than some of the other teams. Um, right? I don't think Reds pitching is that great. So, uh, the Cardinals, what whether they had the COVID issue or not, they were probably the second best team in the Central. So I don't think anything anomalous is happening, but there's certainly going to be, I think, some fluctuations as this goes on, right? I think the Reds and Pirates probably had more of the coincidentally canceled games just as a matter of scheduling. So you may see some sort of rubber band effects, but I don't know if anyone can even catch the Cardinals as much as the Cardinals are numerically behind in games in terms of talent and at least win percentage on the slightly smaller sample size. I think the Cardinals look to be in a better position than we might have expected from a team with such a contagion issue.
Kurganic, what do you got?
The thing is, while the Cardinals are only 3 games back, like, we're behind 8 wins and 2 losses, so the 3-game stat in this crazy season, like, means absolutely nothing. Also, I think it's safe that I don't think that, like, the Cardinals are going to, like struggle as much with conditioning. Like, I think we have solid pitching. I think there's solid pitching on the Cardinals, but, like, I don't know if we can actually, like, make it up to the Cubs, because I think if the Cubs win the division, I think they're number 2 seed. And if I if the Cardinals win the division, I think it would mean that the Cubs would have had to like drop a ton of games. So basically, if the Cardinals win the division, we're probably the number 3 seed. I just don't know if we have the talent to get there because while the Cubs they've won 4 of their last 10, I believe. So while they're like cooling down from like the ridiculously hot start, I just don't think there's enough time in this season for the Cardinals to catch up because they don't have to play 60 games. Like there was a possibility that, like, I think Manfred said that they could play like 55 games and they just go off win percentage. So, like, I don't know if we have the pure game power to make up. Like, I don't know if we have enough games to make up the lead because, like, those losses are now amplified even more if we don't play all of our games.
Yeah, I think the plan is for the Cardinals to play 58 games and to not play 2 against the Tigers. Hero, is that right?
Yeah, it's currently 58 games on the schedule, but I want to add to something that was brought up. Benny said the innings out of the starters are very important to keep the bullpen in shape. So I want to bring up one player that has done a great job at doing this. So Adam Wainwright, he wasted no time. As soon as the Cardinals came back, he had 2 great starts, one against the White Sox and against the Reds, and he's really done his job as an innings eater. He's got to like sit 7 innings, and he's saved the bullpen, especially with all the doubleheaders. And even the bullpen games, we've had a lot of those. I think Mike Schilt has done a great job managing the bullpen, because even if he's forced to make bad decisions with the bullpen, it's because he's thinking about the future, which it could end up paying off. So I think the Cardinals have done everything right when it comes to their pitching and settling back into the season.
Are they looking at Seth Elledge to start some games? Right, I think he's young, but he pitched in relief the other day, right?
Yeah, he's been used out of the bullpen. He's been really good. I think he's gonna be used as a starter at some point. He does seem to have that potential to be a starter. He might right now. I see him starting possibly doubleheaders as
Tony, why don't you talk a little about the NL Central and what do you think about this Brewers team getting swept by the Pirates?
I mean, the Brewers, especially their MVP, Christian Yelich, he has been struggling to start the year. And I think that's spreading out through the entire team. And I think that's why they're only 11-15. And I honestly don't. If Yelich doesn't turn around, I don't see the Brewers making it. I can see the Cubs, Cardinals, or Reds making it, but not the Brewers if Yelich doesn't turn around.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the NL East again. So right now the Marlins are in second. Personally, I don't think that's sustainable, and I think they'll probably drop out of that spot. But I don't watch a ton of NL East games. I'm not really sure. I think the Phillies look pretty bad, even with acquiring Brandon Workman and Heath Hembry. I don't think that they'll be able to. I would be surprised if they didn't come in fifth. And the Nationals have been struggling surprisingly with the rotation mostly. Like the Nationals rotation is usually one of the best in the league, and it's actually been performing poorly this year. So Benny, who do you think will come in second in the NL and the NL East? Do you think your Mets have a chance?
You know, when the Marlins came back, it was like clearly they're not going to stay. What were they like 7-3 or something? And now they've fallen to 500. So I think talent wise, the Mets and Marlins they're not really similar teams, but they're probably overall on a similar talent level. Of course, depending on um, the Marlins players returning to 100% and some of the Mets woes. But yeah, the Nationals are probably counting themselves out. I don't see them making moves. Right, Strasburg is done for the season with carpal tunnel issues. Is it carpal tunnel
Yeah.
necessarily? I believe it is. Yeah. So they may be looking at it as, this is a wacky season, a lost season for us. We're not going into some of those wild card games to have an ace pitch a gem, and so I would say the division may shake out as it is, or Mets Marlins may go back and forth as we look towards the end.
Um, Kurganic, who do you think will come in second in the NL East?
In my opinion, it's the Mets because the Marlins are now like they've fallen back to earth, and now they're only a game off on the Mets and a game and a half on the Nationals. I also think that the Nationals have kind of just given up per se, like because they're not really. I don't. They don't look like they're trying to get into the playoffs now that Strasburg's out. So I I see the Mets getting second in that, but that third place team still might make the playoffs because the the Brewers are just looking awful. The Reds are, I mean, they're not looking bad per se, but they're not looking good either. And the NL West is crazy because the Rockies were have they won only one of their last 10? Yeah, they've only won one. So if if they can't turn it around, they're out. I don't see the Diamondbacks making any moves. So it's either, and like even if that happens, I don't see both of those divisions with their 400 winning percentage teams. Like I don't see any of them actually, like, I think below 500 team has to make the playoffs.
It seems
So
likely, yeah. And I don't know what division it'll be out of. Now, does anyone think the Marlins are going to be buyers, though? I don't. That's just not characteristic for them. However, if they see themselves up on the Mets, and like I said, I think Brody will do something crazy if he has to. If you're trying to compete against that, do the Marlins say, "Yeah, it's a wacky year and anything could happen, so we're in"? I don't know.
Uh,
I don't
I like.
I don't
Go ahead, Hero.
I don't think the Marlins will be buying at all at the deadline, simply because they're still focused on building for the future, and I don't think it's like them to trading for a piece that will put them over the top. Although I do think, like we've seen so far reports that we might be seeing like prospect trades this year, and and like last year they kind of did something similar with Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm, so we might see something like that. But I don't think they're gonna be trading for pieces to contend.
Uh, Hero, I know you have been kind of thinking about the trade deadline coming up lately. So, uh, I wanted to get your thoughts on some potential trades at the deadline this year and who you think's buying and selling.
Some sellers, I would say the Red Sox. We already seen they're selling with the Workman trade. We're gonna see the Pirates probably trading some players. We might see the Tigers as sellers. and the Giants possibly sellers also, and some buyers. We could see the Athletics trading for some bullpen help, or the Mets for some pitching. Um, I think the Cubs are also big in the relief market right now, and the Indians will probably be looking for an outfield bat.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say the Giants will be sellers because if the season ended today, they would be in the postseason. So do you think they're? I mean, with the trade deadline just next week, do you think they're gonna fall off quickly? I mean, they're on a 6-game winning streak right now.
I think the Giants, they've been all right so far. They've been hot lately. Even if they remain hot until next week for the deadline, I still believe they could be selling, whether it's one player or two, and they still have that potential of sneaking in as a wildcard team, whether they sell or not. So I think we're going to be seeing some trades out of San Francisco next week.
I think the
Okay.
most significant seller may be the Royals, right? Because they like all the starting pitching is good to average, and there's going to be teams out there chomping at the bit for some starting pitching. So they may get some of the most lucrative offers.
Well, actually, I think the Royals, if they're gonna sell, it's probably not gonna be as much starting pitching and more the relievers, especially Trevor Rosenthal. I would be shocked if Rosenthal was not dealt this year, and maybe Greg Holland too. Uh, I honestly, as a Cubs fan, I'd love to see the Cubs acquire Trevor Rosenthal. I think any other team would like to see him. He's actually been really good this year after having some injury problems.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, Tony, why don't you talk about the Astros at the deadline and what they need as a team that is gonna have to be fighting for a playoff spot?
I mean, there's one big thing about the Astros and the trade deadline. No one wants to trade with the Astros after what happened in 2017. I think everyone's going to try to stay away from trading with the Astros. And not only that, I honestly don't think the Astros really have anyone to trade, mostly because so many players are hurt. And I think the Astros this year are just going to not make any moves. If they are going to make a move, they're probably going to trade. Could probably see if anyone wants someone like Sias Need, Abraham Toro when Bregman comes back or something like that. But I did not see the Astros making a lot of moves this year.
Yeah, and that's the other interesting thing is that the Astros pretty much they have a playoff spot pretty much locked in with the format. The top two teams from every division get in, and there's no need to catch the A's this year. So if they didn't make any moves, they they'd still get in, but it's a question of is how's that gonna fare in the playoffs. Um, so Kurganic, as a Mariners fan, Mariners maybe not looking to sell off too many, but uh, what do you think about the Mariners at the deadline?
Um, I think I think because of just how young we are and we have a solid farm system right now, I don't think we'll be selling. I really don't know if we'll be selling like almost anything. If the only thing that I could really see is maybe selling off Taiwan Walker, but I don't know because we we're so young and I don't know why you would trade away the amount of young talent that we have. Like maybe Marco Gonzalez. I don't, but he's signed with he signed through 2024, and there's that 25 club option. So I really don't think we're going to be selling that much.
Yeah, I agree that Taiwan Walker is probably the main piece for the Mariners. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit here because um, I've heard a topic brought up a lot today, and that's about umpires. There were some pretty bad calls around baseball today. I've seen some screenshots of uh, the Athletics Angels game and some Jim Reynolds calls there. Laz Diaz certainly wasn't perfect today at Wrigley, and I've heard a lot of people saying that they should have robo umps. I I personally am against that, but I'm suspecting a lot of you support robo umps. Tony, what do you think?
I mean, this year it shows that. I mean, there's one thing this year by the umpires because usually the umpires get to rhythm and they get to the strike zone. But just like all the other players this year, they kind of just got thrown into a season. And they barely been umpiring since spring training. And all of those strike zones are being shown right now. I personally think that Roblox might help because well, so many so much has happened because of a blown call, and it sucks to think that if that one blown call was called correctly, something else would have happened. But that's just my take on it. I personally do want to see Robo still.
Hero, I want to hear your take on this.
So I think, regardless of whether we want it or not, I think the league is planning on getting it eventually. It's gonna happen soon. I believe that the umpires every year seemingly they get worse, and I don't think. Obviously, we've seen it on social media. We've seen lots of bad calls, the outrage from the fans. I know the automated strike zone isn't going to be perfect, but my take is that at least it's going to be consistent with its calls. Like, if it's a bad call, at least it's always going to be a bad call when the ball is in that location, right? So I think it might be for the better. I know people who want umpires to call the balls and strikes because of the human element. I think when it ends up costing a game or a very important moment to a team, I think it's necessary that they move on to automated strike zones.
Um, okay, that's interesting. I think the reason I am against it is because one is, who's going to make the strike zone? And I know a lot of people will say, oh, they have, first of all, it's in the rule book, and also, they'll come to agreement and it'll be all good and square and everything. But, I mean, the other thing is that that's not even what the strike zone looks like. Like those squares that they put up on the TV, that's not what it looks like. If you look at where strikes are called, it's more of a kind of circular oval shape. And so if you wanted to make it how it's been forever, you'd have to do it like that. And if you don't want to make it that way, it might change so much that the pitchers who are used to having human umpires are all of a sudden not going to pitch well. And then they're making all this money and they're not even pitching well. So I think that's kind of there's a problem there in that a lot of pitchers make their career out of human umpires basically. And so I don't know if you can change it over right away without, warning the teams and the general managers that, oh, well, now all of a sudden this pitcher's not going to get this call on the outside corner anymore because the robot umpire will never call it. Benny, why don't I want to hear your take on it?
Well, so I think there's something that we are not considering, and that's strikes, balls and strikes in terms of pace of play. If there's a robot umpire, it could all go a lot faster. You'd have a lot less argument, um, and I suspect there's probably two main issues here, right? The umpires union is going to fight strongly against robot umpires, even if you still have six umps on the field. You're you're taking away part of their job, and they're going to feel slighted by it. Um, I don't know if I agree that it's unfair. Certainly, there's going to be pitchers who lose certain advantages, but a lot of them are guys who get, say, the advantage of a presumption that they're throwing a strike based on their name alone or based on their seniority or their ability to yell at an umpire. And yeah, that's a soft skill, but like nobody ever asks fly ball pitchers how they feel if the ball is getting juiced and if something should be done about that. So, if it moves to a robot umpire system, it's like too bad. However, I think it's interesting that it wasn't implemented this season. So that really says to me that the technology is either not there or the umpires union was not going to allow it, because it would be much safer to have only a catcher and a batter in the box, right? Than someone on his back, especially as some of the umpires are older and not really athletic guys. So it would have been to everyone's advantage if they were going to experiment with it, that it would be done this year. So that kind of signals to me that the technology just isn't mature enough, or they just don't even have a meeting of the minds or anything close to it. Of all the things they managed to sort out, they didn't even really talk about it this season. So I think it may be a few years off. It may not even be in the next collective bargaining agreement. That's just my speculation.
Yeah, that's a really good point about limiting people on the field and getting the umpires off the field. Kurganic, what do you think?
I think that they're going to have to switch to automated umps at some point. I just think they'll have to find, because like you said, that the box strike zone is not the real strike zone, so they're going to have to do it they're going to have to do it correctly. So they're going to have to format different strike zone, and even then the like the first and third base line umpires, they'll have to say, the line judges, they'll have to say still if the batter went or not, and that still creates arguments. So arguments will never be out of sports. Arguments will never be out of baseball. It's just there's competition, there's going to be arguments. That pitch, I don't know how you messed that up. I'm so incredibly confused on how you messed that up. But I don't know if a robo would have been better, just because I don't know how they have to do it right. If they don't do it, if they uh if they put robo into Major League Baseball and it doesn't, and it's just a disaster, like the implications on that could be the end of the league. So they're going to want to do it right, and they're going to wait until they absolutely have to, because it's a huge risk.
Yeah. Okay.
On a related topic, even so, right? You can move to a replay system, and did we all see that home run call in Pittsburgh in extra innings the other night? That went to New York, and they most people think they still got it wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that people are gonna argue no matter what, and sometimes I think that it almost makes it easier if it's with humans, because we know humans can change and the robots can't, unless if they make them. But I don't know if that would happen. Um, I wanna talk about something else now for a little, and that's the the home run race going on. I remember at the beginning of the year, people were like, how many home runs is gonna lead the league this year? People were saying, oh, Giancarlo hit 30 over 60 games or something in 2017. But the number that I kind of heard most was 20. And Fernando Tatis is at 12 right now through half the season. Jose Abreu is at 11. Mookie Betts at 11. Cruz, Trout, Voit, they're all at 10. So I wanted to ask each of you first who you think will lead the league in homers by the end of the year, and how many you think they'll get if they'll get to 20. First, let's go to Hero. What do you think?
So I think someone is definitely gonna pass 25 home runs, potentially 30. And I would say I don't think Tatis is gonna do it. I don't think he's gonna lead in home runs at the end of the year. I would probably say Trout because he's Mike Trout and he does have that kind of power. I don't think I'm not saying Tatis doesn't have power to hit 25, 30 home runs, but when it comes to being consistent for the rest of the season, Mike Trout has already proven that he can be consistent for 8 years, and I think he he's my favorite to lead in home runs for the season. He's gonna hit somewhere between 25 or 30.
Wow, that is a bold prediction there. Tony, what do you think?
I honestly think that because watching the Astros play in San Diego, the ball flies in San Diego, and that's why I honestly think Tatis will win the home run race. And not only that, almost every ballpark Tatis will play this year, the ball will carry. And because of that, I'm gonna say the same thing. The Tatis will finish somewhere between 25 and 30 homers, and then I'm saying Tatis will win it because the ball carries in every stadium he goes to.
Okay, very interesting. Kurganic, what do you think?
Tony just brought up a great point, and if you look at the home run standings right now, Trout, Betts, and Tatis are all playing in a West division, and there's, as you know, there's mountains out there, and like if you're playing in the NL West, the amount of games that you play at course will benefit you in the long run if you're trying to have the most home runs. Like I think that Trout, it's going to be Trout or Bet. I don't think that Tatis can sustain this, and I think this is almost part of what Betts was trying to do. He was trying to create a bigger market in LA because Boston, while being a huge market, just it's not LA. Like really, New York is the only other like big market, and because I don't know who's going to if it's going to be Trout or Betts. My guess would be Betts, but the number wise, I think 20, anywhere from 20 to 25 would make sense. I would say 23 is probably my guess.
Okay, Benny, what do you think?
I'm going to give you the dark horse of Teoscar Hernandez on Toronto. He hits really well in Buffalo. He has, I don't know if you've seen, they spray painted in the parking lot when it goes out to right field there. There's going to be a lot of upcoming AL East parks that are really hitters friendly parks. He could do it at Yankee Stadium. I think they still have to go to Philadelphia later, Citizens Bank Park. Guys always manage to crank it just over that right field wall. So he's at 10 home runs right now. There's about 5 guys with 10 home runs, and I would not be surprised to see him pull into the lead.
That's really funny that you say that because I was going to say the same thing. Tatis, he's never really been a power first guy, so I really don't. I think he'll hit well this whole year. I don't think he'll hit the most homers. Jose Abreu had a really good series against the Cubs, but he hit 6 homers at Wrigley, and he has 5 away from Wrigley. So judging by the fact that he won't go back to Wrigley, I don't think he'll lead the league. Teoscar Hernandez, you bring up that three of the home run, like top 10 home run leaders are in the West divisions. Well, there are just as many in the East because you got Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, Luke Voigt, and Aaron Judge, but he's hurt.
Mhm.
And, I actually would have said Aaron Judge if he never got hurt because he was hitting homers like crazy. But I am going to go with Teoscar Hernandez because he plays at that Buffalo Stadium. I've watched that. I've watched a few games there, and the ball does seem to kind of carry there. So, and I think Teoscar is kind of more a power first guy than someone like Tatis or even Betts. I think Betts
Yeah.
will probably lead the NL, but also I wouldn't say 25 is feasible for any of them. I'd put Teoscar around 22 probably because 25 over 162 games is a 68 home run pace, and we haven't seen that since like
We
a
haven't
long
seen
time ago.
anyone legit do that.
Yeah. So
You know who has the most home runs in exactly 60 games played ever?
who?
Tony Clark.
How many?
He had 13 for Detroit in 2000. Of
Wait.
course, that's an oddly selective stat. That's because he happened to play only exactly 60 games. So how often are there players who hit well and play it? Yes.
I get it. All right.
So in history of players who have appeared in exactly 60 games, the Union president happens to be the leader. However, he's only one ahead of where Tatis is right now.
Yeah. Okay. So next thing I want to talk about is, from the very start of the season, everyone's been talking about, ooh, is someone going to hit 400? And so far, we got two guys hitting over 400 right now: DJ LeMahieu and Charlie Blackmon, and Kyle Lewis and Donovan Solano are above 350. Do any of you think that anyone will hit 400, and who do you think could? Let's go to Benny first.
Yeah, I mean, of all the records that are possible this year, certainly you'll respect the leaders in each category because you're comparing them to what everyone else is doing in 60 games. But if someone hits 400 this year, does that even go in with an asterisk? It's like, yeah, they had the requisite number of appearances in 60 games. So, yeah, I could definitely see Blackmon doing it, especially I don't know the exact number of games that he's played on the road versus at Coors. I think they did have a home heavy early schedule though, did they not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could still see him holding on to it. I don't see anyone else still doing it. But it's again, it's you can't even compare it to the first 2 months of the season because there have been times where guys were hitting close to 400 into late May, right? Which I guess is technically comparable. But I don't know that I don't know that anyone would find it like legitimate or statistically meaningful if someone hits 400. So it's just not that appealing of a race to me. I don't know how you guys feel.
Kurganic, what do you think?
This is kind of a homer pick. Because I am a Mariners fan, but Kyle Lewis he's actually like heating up right now. He's getting better and better. So I would say that it's either going to be Blackmon or Lewis, in my opinion. If it does happen, which personally I don't think it will. But if it does happen, I think it's going to be one of those two. Blackmon just like he was hitting so well earlier, and while the Rockies have cooled down, he hasn't completely cooled off quite yet. So I think it's possible for him. I don't know if I doubt it's going to happen for anyone. I think the best that anyone's going to get to is around 390, but I don't see anyone breaking 400. And if anyone does break 400, I don't see, like, there'd just be so much controversy in like the stat because of how short the season is. I just don't see how, like, anyone would. Let's say that Blackman does hit 400. I don't think anyone's, like, really saying it's legit. And even if, like, the MLB is like doesn't put it, like, it's not put in the record books with an asterisk, I think people will still put it there. So I don't think it's going to matter even if someone does hit 400.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tony, do you think anyone's got a chance?
I honestly think that Noah will hit 400 this year. And I did watch the Astros Rockets series not too long ago, but Blackman struggled in that series. But he has some hit. I mean, some hits in against Houston are kind of like Ichiro-esque hits. They're just hit. He just hit the ball where no one was, and I mean, he can definitely. I mean, I can see him getting close to 400, but I don't see him getting 400. And I don't see, as I said, I don't see anyone getting 400. And even if someone did get over 500, people would say that it's a shortened season, and everyone will put an asterisk right next to it.
Just like the Astros 2017 World Series title. Okay,
Okay, you didn't have to
Hero.
bring that up.
Hero, what do you think? Anyone gonna hit 400?
So I think if somebody's gonna hit 400, it's gonna be Charlie Blackmon. His average is down from, it was like 420-ish last time when we talked last week. He's now down to 402, but he has been playing out of Coors these last few games, so I think the Rockies have a 4-game series against the Diamondbacks at Chase Field, and then after that they go back to Coors. So I think Blackmon has a chance to remain over 400 for these upcoming games. Whether he can maintain it for the rest of the season, I think it's likely as long as he continues to take advantage of the large outfield in Coors and the ball traveling. So I can't say that he will, but if someone's gonna do it, it's gonna be him.
All right. Predictably, you guys all kind of think Blackman's got the best chance. Personally, I don't think anyone's got a chance to hit 400. I don't think anyone's even got a chance to hit 375, honestly. I think the batting title will be someone right around 370, and I think it's going to be Donovan Solano because if you watch this guy hit, he's kind of like David Fletcher, who also has a good chance to have a high batting average, even though he's been slumping a little bit. But he just kind of puts the ball in play, and he hits it to the right side and stuff. And I think Blackman relies on power enough that when he's away from Coors, he'll just fly out and stuff. So I don't think it'll be him. LeMahieu's probably got a better chance than Blackman even, because LeMahieu's another one of those guys like Solano and Fletcher, and LeMahieu's also got Yankee Stadium, which is another hitter's park, but that's more for power. And LeMahieu only has 2 homers this year, so I think Solano and San Francisco has a big outfield too. So when he puts the ball in play, it's like at Coors, but without the ball carrying. So I'd pick Solano to win the batting title, but I don't think he'll hit even higher than 375. One last thing before we're done. Last week we predicted who would win MVP. This week I wanna do that again, but I want to add in Cy Young and Rookie of the Year too. So I want to hear each of you predict AL and NL MVP Cy Young and Rookie of the Year. If you want to have a homer pick like Dylan Carlson, that's fine with me. Hero, why don't you start out?
Okay, so for my MVP prediction, I think last week I said Mike Trout, maybe. I may be wrong, but I'm gonna stick with Trout here. I I know that it seems like I'm just all over Mike Trout, but like he's he's really he's Mike Trout, you know. I don't know what to say. He's gonna get hot like he does. He's gonna go on a tear. The Angels are still gonna suck, but he's Mike Trout. Um, he's my AL MVP prediction for the National League. I might go with Juan Soto just because he's been hitting really well lately, and he's kind of been in the shadows for because the Nationals are not really doing anything notable lately, and he was out to start the year, so people are not taking notice of him. But he's currently hitting 368 with 7 home runs in only 16 games, so I'm gonna pick him to win MVP. And for Cy Young in the National League, I'm gonna go with honestly, I might say Yu Darvish for Cy Young. I know I'm a Cardinals fan. I keep trashing on Yu Darvish, but he has really proven that he's for real. I think in the second half last year, he went unnoticed a little bit. This year, he's kind of in the spotlight. You know, with the Cubs, he's been key to their hot start and to just keeping them in the race so far. So I think he's gonna keep it going for the rest of the season. He's gonna win Cy Young for the Cubs in the National League. And in the American League, I'm gonna say it's probably like as of right now, nobody's close to Shane Bieber. I would think I don't know if he can sustain it. Um, to start the year, I said Tyler Glasnow was gonna win it, but it's looking very unlikely right now. So I'm gonna say Shane Bieber is gonna, or you know what? I think Zach Greinke could also win it in the American League. So I'll leave it between Shane Bieber and Zach Greinke for Cy Young. And for Rookie of the Year in the National League, it's easily Jake Cronenworth, I think, right now. But it, there's a lot of season left, you know, things could happen. And as a Cardinals fan, I have to back up my guy, Dylan Carlson. I think he just hit his first home run today. If he can get hot and hit if he can hit like he did in the minor leagues last year, then he's gonna be up there in the race. And for the American League, I'm gonna say Kyle Lewis because he has been easily the best rookie in the American League so far, and he's just been getting hotter over his last like 7 games. So I think he's gonna hit more home runs. He's just the best rookie we've seen in the American League so far. The closest would be Luis Robert. So yeah, those are my predictions.
Very interesting. Kirianik, let's go to you.
Um, for I'm going to start off with Rookie of the Year. In my opinion, it is easily in the AL Kyle Lewis, and in in my opinion, this is also not a homer pick because he's just like it's really not even close. He's coming. He played 18 games last year. He's coming here and he's kind of taken over. He's he's now our best hitter by far. He's taken over the team. He is he's kind of the heart and soul of the Mariners right now. So I would also probably say Cronenworth for the I'd probably say Cronenworth for the NL. He's really playing out of his mind. I haven't really seen a lot of him, but I would say there's not really much that touch him. If Carlson heats up, like I don't, I think Carlson could definitely be the rookie of the year, but I just don't, I just don't know if it's going to happen. For MVP, In the American League, I might go with Lewis again. I would probably go with Trout, but Trout is more of a safe pick. Judge would have been the pick if he didn't get injured, but I would say that no. My prediction is Lewis. Lewis is raking right now. That's my prediction. For NL, I might go with Betts because he's starting to actually like he's forming chemistry with the team. He's starting to like really click as a part of the Dodger ball club. I would say Betts would be the NL MVP for 2020. Cy Young, Flaherty's been pitching really well, but I would say it's down to Flaherty or Darvish. I don't know who wins. I would probably give the edge to Darvish because Darvish is playing absurd, but I don't know if he can keep that up. The thing is, in this season, nothing is really like it's just long enough so that stuff might not be sustainable, but at the same time, it might be. So it's really hard to like say either way for Cy Young winners and for any awards. AL Cy Young is tough, but I would have to give the like I don't know how you could say that Greinke doesn't win that award if he keeps pitching like he does, and I don't know if he's good. I don't think he'll cool down because like they're with how the Astros are playing right now, they're starting to heat up. Now I don't know if they can sustain that because I don't know if anything can be sustained, but if the energy just keeps getting a little bit better there after what happened in 2017, I don't see how Greinke wouldn't feed off of that and also heat up. Now,
All
the
right.
question is, are they using trash cans?
All right, Benny, let me hear your predictions.
All right, for MVP, I'm going with Nelson Cruz in the AL and Fernando Tatis in the NL. I don't think either of those are unsafe predictions. I think baseball media has to recognize that Fernando Tatis is one of the brightest stars of the next generation of the game, and you know, there's certainly been a shift away from the idea that the MVP has to be making a difference in a playoff race. Just because Mike Trout is one of the probably the greatest baseball players of all time, and is unfortunately not playing on a team that's competitive. I guess really with A-Rod, there were a couple of years that he won where he may have been the first to win when the Yankees didn't make the playoffs. One of those years. But yeah, I'll go with those for MVP. For Cy Young, I will go with Trevor Bauer and Shane Bieber. I think they're both pitching dominantly. I think you do end up seeing now that Cy Young winners are based on statistics and less flashiness, less wins, that sort of thing. As for rookies of the year, I think Dustin May would be a good story if he continues pitching as well as he has, and Luis Robert on the White Sox potentially right it. I think there will be kind of a not necessarily mattering whether you're in a playoff race, but whether people are paying attention to your games. and with no disrespect to say the Mariners or anyone, I wonder how much, with all the condensed times of games, with as many East Coast games as there are at 7 o'clock, and you got your West Coast games at 10 o'clock, are people watching some of the games that are uh, uh, not all that relevant? Right? Normally, I enjoy, you get to watch some Cubs games at 2 p.m. and all that. And this year it feels like more like a hockey schedule, that all the games are at the same time. And if fewer eyes are on your games, I don't know if people are talking about you as much. And were you had manager of the year on the list, but I don't think we've been doing those, are we?
I'd
You want
try
to
to.
you want to get
I
into
kind
that?
of want to. I kind of want to stay away from manager of the year until the end of the year because it's kind of hard to predict without knowing who's in the playoffs.
Yeah, it is always that kind of thing that it's really just who overperforms,
Right.
who has a better record than you expected. So Joe Girardi is not going to be in the mix. But anyway, we'll get into that later in the season, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony, you go ahead.
All right, so lastly for AL MVP, I said that Judge will win it. I still believe that if Judge wasn't gonna get injured. So I have two guys up right now. I honestly think Chad will win it, but I'm gonna surprise some people with who I think the runner-up will be. I think the runner-up will be Brandon Lau. He is currently on a tear, and I don't think he'll stop. I mean, he currently has the fourth best OPS in baseball, and I don't see him stopping. For National League MVP, I'm gonna give it to Fernando Tatis Jr. with best go number 2. For AL Cy Young, it's hard as an Astros fan because I'm between Zach Greinke and Shane Bieber. And Greinke so far this year, he has pitched 6 games, basically offsets were in hitters' ballparks. He has actually given up 0 home runs, and I think that he will win the Cy Young. And also his character is amazing. He literally threw a 54-mile-per-hour ephus today in San Diego, and then came back with an 89 fastball. And I don't think anyone can hit that. I think he'll keep it up. For a National League Cy Young, I honestly, even though I hate this person with a passion, I think it's gonna be Trevor Bauer. He currently has the best ERA baseball, and I believe the best WHIP in baseball too. Yep, he does have the best WHIP in baseball too, and the lowest batting average against this year too, including the most complete games. Even though I hate him, I'm gonna say the Cy Young will be Trevor Bauer. For Cy Young, I have watched this player so many times, and it has to be Kyle Lewis. I love playing against Seattle because I get to watch him play, and he's amazing to watch. But with of course Luis Robert up there. For the National League, I think it's gonna be Jake Cronenworth. He's been amazing this year, and I think he'll keep on going.
Okay. I'm gonna give some kind of sleeper picks because you guys have all the kind of to be expected picks. In the NL for MVP, I'm gonna go with Mike Yastrzemski. At the beginning of the year, I wasn't so sure. I wasn't so sure if he could like keep up what he's doing, but I mean, he homered today, and he has the most F4 in baseball, even more than Fernando Tatis. And I think I'm not sure about the voters, but the first thing I look at for MVP is WAR, and Mike Yastrzemski's leading all of the majors. And the AL, I'm gonna go with Brandon Lau. I know someone brought him up. He's on the Rays, small market team, but he's just such a good player. And not only like last year, he probably he would have been close to winning Rookie of the Year if he didn't get injured. And this year, not only is he hitting just as good as last year, he actually has more power. He's been hitting way more homers than he did last year. So I'll take those two. So for my Cy Young picks, at the beginning of the year, I always make predictions for awards, and I had I don't know, Mike Trout and Mookie Betts winning MVPs, but for Cy Young at the beginning of the year, I had Zach Gallen and Aaron Savali winning, and just because they're doing good to start the year, I'm gonna stick with those picks. Zach Gallen's ERA is down at like 2.25, and Savali's at 2.91. So, I'm kind of proud of my picks at the beginning of the year there, and I'll stick with them. And for Rookie of the Year, I am going to take Jake Cronenworth for the NL, but in the AL, I know Kyle Lewis is the obvious pick, but I'll say that if he can't keep this up, this is a very dark horse pick. It's a sleeper pick. But Matt Foster of the Chicago White Sox, he's pitched in 12 1/3 innings this year. He has 17 strikeouts and is not allowed to run. He may be a reliever, but he is looking so good right now. If he pitches the entire year and gives up just a few runs, I mean, I don't know if he'd beat Kyle Lewis if he keeps up what he's doing. But if Kyle Lewis slumps at all, I think it'd be pretty crazy to see a reliever win Rookie of the Year. And I really like Matt Foster. So those are my predictions, and I think we'll wrap it up here. This will conclude the MLB After Hours podcast number 2. Thank you for listening.